Welcome to the Becoming a Streamer podcast by Pipeline, where we sit down with streamers and dive deeper into how they got to where they're at today and where they're at on their journey. I'm your host, co-founder of Pipeline, Stone Mountain 64, and today we are joined by Gothix. She started streaming back in 2017 and now has an audience of over 35,000 people. She has an awesome mix of content, a lot of it being chatting and IRL, that being in real life outside of games, alongside the gameplay. She also has a robot companion for her stream, which is incredible, and one of the most awesome green screen setups I've seen, and an incredible community. You can find her at twitch.tv/Gothix. That's Gothix. And today we have an awesome podcast. Without further ado, enjoy. Boom, Gothix, welcome. Thank you so much for joining for the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. I'm super stoked to be talking with you. Getting into, how you got into streaming, how you have been doing everything. Before we get too deep, though, I want to kind of see where are you at now with creating content. Where are you streaming? If somebody were to look you up, what would they see?
Yeah, so my content right now, I kind of do a lot of improv, a lot of randomness. My whole shtick is making people laugh. So you'll get like a lot of people coming into my channel, and the first thing they'll say is like, what the hell is going on? Because there's no explanation for it. So it's definitely something you have to experience with your own eyes to really understand it. But as far as where to find me, I'm currently on Twitch, but that might change. I've been thinking about my future as a creator, and I'm kind of wondering what's out there. I streamed on Facebook the other day for the first time, which was very confusing. I didn't know
different.
I didn't know people were in my chat when I did it, and they were talking to me. I'm like, oh, there's people here. So, but yeah, right now I'm on Twitch/Gothix.
Awesome. Yeah. And for those of you guys who are just listening to this, her background right now is green screen. It's got a green screen table, a green screen chair. How much gaming do you do versus chatting and creating that sense?
Yeah. So I'm all about community engagement. So if I am going to play a game, which I rarely do, it's going to be a community based game. So something like Jackbox, Act It Out, something where I can get the audience involved. Occasionally I'll play some Dead by Daylight. And that's just because I am very animated when I'm, killing people in game. And I think people like that. But for the most part, I would say I probably game 30% of the time, and the rest is just interacting with my audience.
And is that you using the green screen exclusively with your content, or do you mix it up without it as well?
Yeah, I do a little bit of everything. So with the green screen, sometimes I make immersive scenes and stuff. I can make myself in a spaceship, or I can make myself in a doctor's office if I want to. So, or even sometimes it'll just be me having a just chatting screen with just me sitting here right now, not really doing anything, just communicating with people.
And you also, I'm curious too, do you play with a lot of other people? Do you do a lot of collaborations? I know you've got a bot as well, or...
Yeah. So I have a robot, an artificial intelligence for my stream. His name is ST3, and I interact with him. And the reason that I made him mostly was because to fill those instances where there's some dead air. So if I don't have a lot of people in chat, or people are busy making dinner, I can talk to this robot, and his responses can kind of, help fulfill that content that I need. But yeah, I pretty much I just love the community interaction aspect of it. So he was a really great addition.
And artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I say that, but he's not really.
Sure.
So basically I program certain responses to him. So he actively listens to things that I say, and then he'll respond accordingly. So if I say, hey, welcome to the channel, he'll go, yes, welcome, new user. He'll respond after me. I'll be like, oh, I'm hungry right now. And then he'll say, maybe you should eat before you start streaming. You know what I mean? So I purposely made him kind of sassy to get that reaction from my audience.
That is super cool. That is so cool.
Thank you.
Was that something that inspired you, or was there something in the past that inspired you for that? I guess before you even got into streaming or into this world, what were you? Oh, were you working? Were you in school? What got you into it before you did it?
So I was working in a call center, and that's pretty much what I've done my entire adult life is just work in call centers. And I don't know if you've ever done it, but it's mentally exhausting. It's not a fun time. So my friend at the time said that she was on Twitch and I should give this streaming thing a try. So I did. And initially I started because like I had this idea that I was going to get rich overnight, but that totally didn't happen. But I ended up really enjoying the idea of making content. And that's why I'm still sticking with it.
That's awesome. So you thought it was just going to blow up or what?
Yeah, I was like, oh, I can play games. I can make money. No problem. I streamed for a week to nobody and I couldn't figure out why.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things like just like trial and error, figuring out what works and doesn't work. Like, it's awesome. Like you have the pipeline program and stuff because like back when I started, I didn't know of any of those things. I didn't really have a mentor. I just kind of figured it out.
Yeah. What kept you going or like figuring out, the direction? Because I mean, if you do it and it's like, oh, well, what do I do now? Right. Like, how did you start to kind of figure out a path on that? Was it just something you were passionate about? You wanted to keep going on Twitch? You thought this was really interesting? Like, what caught your attention to keep going with it?
When I started getting feedback from the very few viewers that I had that they liked seeing me do X, Y, and Z, or they enjoyed watching me do something else. That kind of stuck with me. And I'm like, I like having this effect on people. Whereas I go back to the office, I pick up a phone, I'm getting yelled at by some random person. It's not a good feeling. So it was easier for me to solidify this idea that I wanted to be a content creator because it wasn't very glamorous being a call center rep.
Was it hard to like do call center work and then come back and you're doing more talking at that point? Was that something that was difficult to juggle that?
Not really, because when you work in a call center, everything is like, strict. You have to talk to them a certain way. You have to just be respectful. Even if they're calling you all kinds of mean things, you just got to be calm, collected. So after 8-hour shift, I would come home and let loose. I would talk about my day. I would do like little comedy sketches of me reenacting these terrible customers that I dealt with. So in a way, it was like some type of therapy for me to come home and stream and do all this.
That is so awesome. And making skits out of it too. So then you started on Twitch with it. How long ago was it when you first started?
I want to say it was fall of 2017, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so it's been a few years then. And you said you're even considering some other platforms. Have you tried even doing like YouTube videos or Twitter posts? Like how's your kind of mix been from that and kind of expanding out to other platforms if you weren't on them already in the first place?
Yeah, like I'm kind of dabbling in YouTube. I want to get more into it. I think right now I'm trying to find a place that values me as a creator. Yeah. So that's why I'm kind of like experimenting. Like I tried streaming on Mixer for a little bit. I'm trying Facebook now. I'm just seeing where I kind of fit in because my content is very like, although I attract audience of different age groups, I feel like predominantly adults watch me because I have a potty mouth anyway. So I'm trying to find something where I can call home and not worry about like, am I going to get banned today because I made a joke? Like one of those things. Sure. So like it's a mixture of that and also finding something where it's just like, my work is valued, like I can sustain myself in the future. Because right now I'm doing this kind of part-time. And I've been kind of debating with myself, do I want to get a part-time job and just go back as a part-time creator instead of a full-time? Because it's a lot of responsibility to do it full-time, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it gets a little draining because then you have to hold yourself accountable. If something goes wrong, it's like, well, it's because of me. Nobody else is responsible for any failures as I do as a creator. So
I mean, it is like, you're the entrepreneur, you're the one who's steering the ship and making the decisions of where all this stuff goes. I guess, how has that realization or process been for you as you've been doing this?
Oh, it's overwhelming sometimes. Lots of burnout that I've experienced. but I do like the idea that I am in control. And so like I have
Mhm.
more opportunities to express myself and create something without having someone hovering over my shoulder telling me I'm not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
So like it's weird. Like I have pros and cons of being a full-time creator. But definitely like as much as I may not like the how much weight I take on by doing everything myself, at the end of the day, if I'm able to create something amazing that people want to consume, like I'm happy.
Yeah. And when you were doing this, I guess working the other job at the beginning of this and then transitioning and now doing it full time, more or less, just working on it. What was your schedule like in both of those scenarios, and how did that adjust?
Yeah. So when I was working full time, I would go to work and then I would get out of work like around 6 p.m. and I would come home and then stream at 8 p.m. and then I would stream for 4 hours. So I'd have like a little hour and a half to kind of get ready. Um, and when I went full time, I was streaming 4 days a week starting at 2 p.m. Eastern. But I'm thinking about reeling it back. And even if I decide I don't want to get a part-time job, I'm thinking about reeling it back and just doing nighttime streams again,
Mm.
because I felt like it was more consistent. I had more of like a schedule. Whereas now as a full-time creator, I'm just like, I have all this time in the world, but I don't know how to schedule out my
Hmm.
day in a way that works for me. So I kind of prefer being a part time creator in that aspect, because I
Sure.
feel like my days I have more substance to my days.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point earlier, if a lot of what you're talking about is even like stories or things that happen at work, like now
Yeah,
you gotta, what other stories can you come up with? Whether that's going out
this
right now, it's like,
yeah, that's exactly my problem. It's like I would find myself in the just chatting categories for at least 2 hours every time I streamed,
Mhm.
and now I'm just like, I work from home. There's no one to talk about. There's no story. So that's the problem that I'm facing right now.
Yeah, and when you're prepping for, I mean, did you do a lot of prep for those streams at the time, or like, are you doing a lot of prep for those now before you even go live? Is that,
Yeah. So definitely the prep that I did back when I was doing this part time was I did a lot of like face paint and costumes and stuff. So I would prep myself and
yeah,
make myself look crazy, because that helped with my social media promotions. When I tell people that I'm going live, people are more likely to click on a video of a crazy lady in makeup. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So I did a lot of prep back then, and like now the prep that I'm doing is more based on like the equipment that I have, making sure the
hmm,
audio is working, making sure the special effects are working. So it's a lot more extensive than before, but there's always at least like an hour prep before each stream.
yeah. And is that too like development? You've got this green screen whole setup there. Is that like developing that and different effects, different graphics and things as well?
Yeah, pretty much. So like, nothing is set in stone with my current rebrand that I'm doing.
Yeah,
What I have set up has taken like it's been like a course of 4 months where I've just been experimenting with camera placement, experimenting with like what mics I should be using when I'm standing up versus being at my desk. So it's a
yeah.
lot of just like figuring out what works to make it have like a more like fluid flow to the show, instead of like it kind of just being all over the place.
That's awesome. And then you started with Twitch on it and kind of just free forming with it. How did you come up with more of a plan and kind of, you're going with kind of a rebrand now, you're doing a lot of commentary with it. How did you kind of find that path on it?
So like mostly the most thing about my branding is like, first and foremost, I have to love my branding. It has to speak to me. It has to be something that I enjoy. And then also like listening to my audience and like kind of developing my brand based on like the feedback that I get from them. So like, for example, I don't know if you're familiar with this program called Snap Camera.
No.
It's like Snapchat, but they made a desktop version for it. And I was one of the first streamers on Twitch to use Snap Camera, which will kind of distort my face and everything like that. And this was before I got partnership on Twitch. I used Snap Camera as like an integral part of my stream. And I posted this one clip of me using this face and being weird. And next thing I know, I have like 80,000 views on Twitter from this clip. And then everybody started coming in for like the Snapchat girl because they wanted to see me do these crazy faces and just act insane. So I was like, okay, I can work with this. So I kept like incorporating that into my brand. It almost became a part of my brand. But the problem with that is once that program stops working, where's my brand? You know, it's like kind of like if you rely on a game and all of a sudden that game just stops working, the servers go down. What's your brand? So that was one of the reasons I decided I think I wanted to try experimenting a little bit more so that I can have something to sustain myself and not rely on another program or effect or something like that.
Yeah. Are you using that at all still? Is that something that you occasionally go to, or?
Very minimally, I'll use it because when I did, it was very extreme to the point that I looked like a different person, and very rarely people knew what I actually looked like. So I want my face to kind of be on camera. You know, if I use the program, I might change my eye color or something very like, tiny. But yeah, I use it every now and then.
Do you think that was something that made it hard for, like if somebody did come by, they didn't realize who you were if they came by another time? Like, do you think that's helpful to you, to like, you having your face out there or whatever it is?
Yeah. So the only time that actually happened, because like for the most part, like you can tell it's me. Oh, she has like dark skin. Like it's obviously her, just her face is messed up. There was this one filter that I would use where it would turn me into an old man, but it would change my skin color to like a lighter complexion. And there were those times where people were like, who the hell is this? Like who's on this stream?
Yeah.
But very rarely. Yeah.
And then, did you show this to your friends or family when you were getting started on all of this? Like, is that something that was part of it? Was there support there?
So with my friends, I kind of laid out what I wanted to do, like going into the future. Like I want to be a creator. That means I might have to be a little bit more strict with, me hanging out with you at parties and doing, you know what I mean? Like I'm going to kind of take more of my attention to building this brand rather than hanging out with you. And that's a terrible thing to say, but my friends were very understanding of it because prior to that, I really wasn't chasing my dreams. I was kind of just like, going with the flow, like every day, wake up, go to work, wake up, go to work. So I wanted to try something different. So my friends were very understanding. My mom is very understanding, although she has no idea what Twitch is still. I showed her a clip. She's like, I don't get it. I don't know what you're doing. She's like, you get paid for this? And I said, yeah. And she goes, how much an hour? And I said, no, that's not how it works. So for the most part, people have been very understanding.
Yeah. And I mean, did you take any feedback from them at all? Like, was that something that they joined in on at all? Or was it just like, I mean, obviously your mom didn't figure it out or anything, but
yeah. As far as feedback, I really didn't get much feedback. But one thing I will say is I think I kind of got a little bit too like caught up in building my brand last year, which is why this year I'm kind of taking it easy. Yeah. And I'll admit, like I kind of inadvertently neglected a lot of the friendships that I had before I started streaming, which it sucks. Like I feel terrible. So I'm trying to like find a better work personal life balance so I can avoid that in the future.
Yeah, no, I think it is. It's very easy to get caught up and just keep going endlessly. There's literally endless things that you can do to keep working on all of this, right? Like you're the person who's steering the ship, figuring out in the first place. But like you mentioned that you got feedback from your audience then. Was that like people who were tuning in and you're kind of seeing what they liked, what they didn't like, and you kind of kept on developing from there?
Yeah. We'll literally have times in my stream where someone will say, it would be so cool if this could happen, or it'd be so cool if you did this. And I'm like, let's do it right now. So I'll open up Photoshop, I'll design something really quick, and we're like, okay, let's test this out. So a lot of my scenes that I've done, like, for example, I have a scene called McBruh, which is basically a drive-through window that I can place someone's order for in the drive-through. And that was created by my community. And we'll do stuff on the spot all the time like that. And that's amazing. Like, I love that. But yeah, majority of my ideas come from my audience.
That's awesome. And then last year you mentioned it seemed like you're getting burnt out with it or not balancing it very well. What did you kind of do to bring yourself back, I guess, or to help balance yourself out so that you can keep pursuing it and keep the passion and keep what you're doing going forward?
Yeah. So definitely I'm not there yet. So if, like a bunch of stuff happened last year, but most prominently, like I experienced my first cancel culture mob on Twitter, which is very terrifying if you've never had it happen to you before. And that kind of sucked all the fun of creation
Mm,
out of me for a little bit, to the point that I would hit the live button and I'm just like, it's not in me. Like I don't have that same spark that I had before, because I was a little bit traumatized by all of these people coming at me at once online, you know?
yeah.
So I took a break from Twitch, and I kind of used that time to kind of like, reach out to friends that I haven't been speaking to because of streaming and stuff. And I'm still slowly trying to get back into content creation while still working on my personal life too. But I'm definitely in a much better place, but it takes time. And I think that every creator is going to experience that at some point, either burnout or something's going to happen where they're totally traumatized from the idea of content creation. And don't feel bad about it. Just like, it's life. People change, things change. Just take your time. And when you're ready, you're ready,
Yeah. And I mean, what was that like for you now to come back then? I mean, like finding yourself and finding your way back on Twitch, because some people might have just been like, I'm done with all
Yeah.
of it and gone on and done something else.
Yeah, I have to keep reminding myself why I started this in the first place. And I remember that I was miserable working for somebody else and not being my true self. So that's why I want to continue doing content creation, because I feel like I'm very expressive. I can be myself with no repercussions, and
Mm.
that's amazing. So I have to just keep, it's like repetition, just keep reminding myself that. And yeah, just try to make myself a little bit uncomfortable every day, because before I didn't like the idea of using webcams, but I would force myself to use a webcam every day. So now my hurdle is, I don't feel like streaming because I'm afraid people are going to hate me or something. Stream anyway. Just like keep doing it until it
Mm.
becomes like second nature.
And do you think that's like nerves and kind of just going outside of your comfort zone and you want to keep challenging yourself in that way?
Oh, totally. I feel like the majority of like burnt out, or even in my situation, it's like it's just a battle with your own mind. So just trying to like overcome that barrier and just to get yourself back on track. So that's why it's just like I say, don't rush things, because your mind is crazy. It does what it wants half the time. I have a little bit of imposter syndrome right now, where I'm just like, oh, this sucks. Nobody's gonna like this. And then it turns out people do like it. So yeah.
Sure. And then, I mean, while you're creating, you're doing a lot. Obviously, you're doing a rebrand. You got your bot going. You've got a lot of stuff going. Is that something you're completely working on your own with? Like, is there any systems that you've built, moderators that you use or moderators that help you, agents, anybody else that helps you with everything that you're doing?
Mm-hmm. So no, currently I don't have any agents. My moderators have scolded me recently because I refuse to ask for help. I have a little bit too much pride. So that's going to be changing soon, where I'll start delegating certain tasks to have people help, because I'm just a very reserved person, and I don't like the idea of not being able to pay people for their services that they do. And if somebody's helping develop something on my stream, I personally think they should be paid for it. But I'm not in that financial state right now in my life. So I decide just to not ask for help. And that kind of bites me in the ass later on,
Yeah.
So hopefully that will change with time. I'm getting more comfortable asking people for help and vocalizing that I need help, because I have a lot of pride.
Yeah, no, and I think that's great. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that, whether they like to watch the stream and whether they like to send a tip or become a subscriber, or there's a bunch of other ways that people like to contribute or like to be involved in the community or whatever it is. So I definitely think it's cool. And I mean, is there anything in particular that reason why you think that maybe you are more reserved on doing that?
I guess I just don't want to feel like a failure,
Mm,
Like I'm a high school dropout and I got lots of
mm,
lectures about how I just like dropped the ball on that. I wasn't going anywhere in life. The typical conversations you hear from your family if you do something like that. So I'm just like, okay, I'm going to build something from nothing, which was the streaming part. And for me to say like, oh, I need help with all of this stuff, I feel like I'm in turn kind of letting myself down a little bit, like, oh, I can't do it by myself type of thing.
sure. No,
Yeah.
and I mean that's incredible that you're building all of this stuff in the first place. I think that's an incredible thing. Eh, and you dropped out of high school as well. Like, do you think that's affected you in what you're doing in this? Like, to me, it doesn't seem like it would be, nobody really cares what the prerequisite for streaming or creating content or anything is, right?
Yeah, it's like back then it hurt me because I was trying to find employment and nobody would hire
Um,
me because I was a high school dropout. But in retrospect, the employment that I was looking for was stuff I really didn't care about. I just needed
mm,
to pay my bills. So now that I'm trying to pursue streaming, that doesn't really matter anymore. Now it's like an even playing field because now I have to use my brain and my creativity to create something versus like what type of education I have under my belt,
yeah, and I mean it's got to be more enjoyable, right? Like that's
Oh,
what you
oh
want to
yeah.
do. You want to
Yes.
completely do your own thing with it,
Yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
that's what you got to build towards too. But also, I mean, you're self taught with Photoshop, with design, and I mean the designs and everything you're creating on your stream are they're and even just implementing, they're on another level.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I've been doing Photoshop since like junior high school. And then After Effects, I pretty much learned from this past December till now because I wasn't streaming during like for like 2 months, and I pretty much just like went on YouTube and just learned how to use After Effects. So that's like another thing I recommend for streamers. Like if you're one of those that are just like, yeah, I stream 7 days a week, take
Mm.
some time off to learn a craft because it's really gonna help.
Yeah, I mean it increases your arsenal of what you can do, what you're capable of. How long did it take you to learn some of those things? Is that something you were just interested in general?
Yeah, I think I was just
Design?
interested, and I'm also very frugal with my money. So
Mm,
I was like, I don't want to pay you for this. I can do it. So
sure.
I'm one of those like I can do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We're getting to the end of the time here. I just want to, give you a final chance here. Is there any other thing that you maybe think is like a really vital skill that you've had, or maybe some other advice that you'd give to anybody?
Hmm. I would say go with your gut. There were a lot of times where I had lots of great ideas that I would kind of, think in my head, wow, this is amazing, but let me ask so and so just to be
Mm,
sure. And sometimes it would kind of downplay it. And I don't know if it was because they didn't believe I can do something like that, or they didn't think that there was a space in the streaming world for the ideas that I had. But go with your gut. If you have something that's kind of just like always annoying you, like, hey, do this, try this, try this, try this, it's probably a sign that you should probably try it.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
I love it. Awesome. Well, listen, I hugely appreciate you joining in today. If anybody wants to find you, see your content, see what you're doing, check out the robot, everything you got going, where do they find you?
They can find me at twitch.tv/Gothix. And then you could also find me on Instagram and Twitter at Gothix TV.
Awesome. Check her out. Absolutely awesome. Really appreciate you joining in with us.
Thank you for having me.
If you guys want to listen to any more podcasts or anything we're doing, you can find that at pipeline.gg. Thanks so much.